All right, so we go to the next one here, which is row. Wait a minute. Okay, row permissions. So in this one, we user rows map. Okay, so this one saves the permissions and what row they're attached to. So of course, we'll need a row ID, I guess, to know which row this is attached to. And then here we'll need the permission. The permission that's attached to that particular row. So this one is variable character here. Let me duplicate this instead, like so. So variable character. Permission names can be quite long, but I don't think they would reach more than 100. So let's put 100 there. I'm going to remove this. Here disabled is important, so let's put disabled. So that 0 is active, the others 1 is inactive. Okay, so that's fine. Permission and then the row ID. So this one will be an int. Let's add a default 0 value here so that it's not null. Okay, great. Disabled, blah, blah, blah. We don't need this. Now with permission, we could add just one piece of data, one row there. And let's see. What have I done? Like so. Okay. So we could add one row here, and this one is we expect admin to have an ID of 1, so row ID here should be equal to 1. All right, and then wait, why don't I have commas here? Okay, so that is a flaw in our code. So let's fix that in the app Thunder samples. So let me go to migration sample, and right about here I should put commas on these guys, like so. All right, so let's save. Okay, so the row is admin user rows, that's fine. Here we have, let's see, row ID is 1, and then the permission, the only permission we're sure of is the O, because admin will have all permissions anyway. And disabled will be 0. All right. Good, then let's add that, and we are done. Okay, so varchar row default 0, auto increment, good, primary key. Okay, goody. Now let's go to the final one here. So this one we have a row ID, for example. Let me just grab the content of this row ID here. It can come in handy. So this is just a map. So this one just shows us what's attached to what. So the other one has user rows, this one has permissions, but then this one connects the two. It shows us which wait a minute, it's user rows, which user is connected to which particular row. So there's row ID here, and the next one should be user ID, and yep, that should do. And then we'll have disabled to make sure that it's enabled, right? Like so. Let me remove this, that, and Oops, went too far there. Let's remove this part and this part. Okay. Alright, it's looking good. Now here I don't think we need any row, because then we'll be attaching, but we can attach maybe the first user to a specific row. Maybe we can do that. So let me just remove this. Let me put a comma here, a comma there, and a comma there. And let's move this. Boop, 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 boom. So here we'll imagine that the row ID of admin is 1, which it will be. And then we can imagine that the user ID is also 1, since that's the admin, the very first record. And then disabled 0. That's the data we will save in there. Okie dokie. Very cool. Now, provided, since we had issues with adding users the first time, so these IDs are different, so let's just make sure admin is ID 1. Let's move this to 2. It doesn't really matter at the end of the day, but we are imagining this is when we are adding these things to our system. We should find them in their default values like that. Okay, good. So we have our migration files, and if I refresh, nothing changes here because we've just created the migration files, but we haven't actually run any migrations. So here I'm going to say PHP thunder migrate, and this one is the user rows folder. So just the whole folder, migrate the files, press enter. Okay, so there's a syntax error somewhere in the migration file. So unexpected token on line 34. Okay. So where is 34? Here. So there's a semicolon there missing. So let's make sure we add that to every one of these. And then we add it to the sample as well, because the sample is the source migration sample, and it should have those things ready to go. Okay, so let's try and run that again. Okay, so there's another fatal error. Class migration rows not found. What? Right. Okay, so this makes sense here. Yeah, this does make sense. Okay, it's this here. It can't find. Okay, what I need to do is for this thing to be able to grab everything except the numbers here. Okay, so what I need to do to fix this is to go back to our thunder.php here. So in the migrate function, which is this one, it can't find the file. So class name, and then where does it import the file? So this is the file. Okay, so what's the error here? It says unquote class blah 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 not found. Yeah, so that's where the problem is. Let's look at this. Let's try this where there is a loop here. Whatever we do there, we can move it to the other side. So this is the part that gets the the file name, right? Migrating file for each file as file. So that's the file name. We grab the base name. That's great. So that's the class name. But here, we just need to add one more thing here. We'll do an underscore. But let's escape it. So I'm just gonna do I think the underscore is innocent, so let's leave it there. We'll do the same over here, put an underscore there so that it's included. Okay, we're still in the migrate. So that goes with class name is equal to string replace. Okay. But then let's add one more thing here. We want to remove any trailing or leading underscores. So I'm going to grab this. And then I will do trim over here. Put that variable, comma, to show what we are trimming, and put that underscore. So I'm going to grab this again and put it over here. Alright. So let's give it a shot and see if it works. F3 to run this again. Okay, apparently everything worked out as intended. Okay, great. So now if I refresh, we shouldn't have any problems because our tables should be there. So if I now click on our database, you see our tables are here. So there's row permissions and there's a record there, which is great. If we go to the structure, we'll see everything is saved as intended. Back to this. Same thing with the map. There's at least one record there, which is great. And user rows themselves. There's the admin row. Why is the ID 3 though? That's not right. User rows, ID 3. Why? Okay, so let's see that migration. User rows. Right, maybe you should just put ID here. One, like that, right? Okay, so I'm gonna delete these three just so I can start again, since it's just a click away. So I'm gonna drop all of them. All right, then run the migration again. Boom. Okay, no errors, that's fine. Back here, let's go to user rows. Okay, at least we have the right information now. Row map 1. Okay, that's fine. And permissions. Why does it have ID 3? This is crazy. Okay, so let me just put this at 1, I guess. Doesn't matter though. So let's go to permissions. I should put the ID here as well, which is 1. So maybe I should put ID on all of these guys and make sure it's 1. Like that. Okay guys, great. So if I now refresh, this is what we get. Now, things have disappeared here. I don't know why. If I go back to the dashboard, I don't have permission to view certain things, which is curious. Let's go to basic auth because I moved those things there. Let's see here. I should have all permissions. Oh, the reason now I don't have permissions is because there are records here now. So it's no longer going here where it was giving me all permissions. So now we need to actually get some permissions here. So let's fix that part. And what I'm going to do first is log out and then log in again. because I think I changed some IDs there, so I need to make sure I have the correct ID. Okay, so my name is admin here. If I go to admin, I still don't have permission for those things, but let's fix that. So let's look at the way the tables are mapped here, because that's the important part. Let me refresh the page so it has the list of items on this side. There we go. Okay, so you see the rows that are here. There's only one row, which is admin. And what I've done is admin has an ID of 1, and then our user, the admin, has an ID of 1 as well. So the mapper here, the map, there's a row permission, which is the row which is admin has these permissions. So it can be a long list. Maybe there's view users, this and that. They can all have the same row ID, meaning that row ID, let's say for example management or ICT, can have several lists of permissions here. Now in this case, the row ID is 1, which means this is admin, and the permissions are all, which is right there. So in this case, we just need to set our user to a particular row, which is admin. So since that's already done, all we need to do now is go to check, first of all, what row belongs to our user. And we do that in the user rows map here. So our user ID is 1. So what row do we belong to? And we belong to row ID 1. So here we'll do a select, where we select wherever our user ID is, we select the row ID. So let's run that query. So the query is like this. Select row ID, just so we can know what rows this user has. So select row ID from, now I want to grab these from here, so I'm gonna copy this. It's inside the optional tables if they are there. So instead of rows table, this one is the one with a map within it, rows map table. Oops, wrong place. I should have put it here. Okay, so we copy that from the rows map table. Now we need a where clause. So I'm gonna do this and say where. Okay, so we're getting the row ID where the user ID is equal to my user ID. So in order for me to know my user ID, I need to grab it from the session. So here it's going to be like this. That's how we grab stuff. Okay, so we get that user ID from the session, and here where we say where user ID is equal to, and then we'll say user ID. Okay, so we don't put a limit there because there could be many rows that one user has. So 1, and then we grab all of these results. Now the results of this we're going to use in another table. So here we will enclose this one, oops, inside brackets like this, curly braces. And the reason we're doing that is because we're going to have another select statement which will depend, the result of this will help us read from another table. So we'll do again select. Instead of select all here, we want to know what the list of permissions we have. So from here, so here we've grabbed a list of row IDs. We imagine that. Now let's go to permissions, because we want to get permissions, right? So permissions are here. So since we have row IDs, we want to get all the permissions that belong to that row ID. So we want permission. That's what we want to get from here. So select permission from, and let's add that. So I'm going to grab this, put it here. Now, what table is this? This is the table for permissions. So it's this one, permissions table. So back here, permissions table. So we're grabbing everything from the permissions table, but that depends on, so let's put a where clause here. I'm going to say where. It's better to just put a space here, just in case there's no space on this side. Where row ID, and then we put in, yeah, so where row ID in whatever results are coming from here. So here we have to make sure that we only return one column of data, so that we compare that column, all those results, to this and grab the permissions from there. Alrighty then, so let me move this like so. So hopefully that query is not too confusing. Then now I'm going to say permissions. I'm going to call them perms is equal to db. Let's run that query. Okay, so if there are results inside perms here, I just want to use the, let's see, if perms. You can always check to see the number of affected rows. That can tell you how many were returned. If the number of affected rows is high, so we can do something like if db affected rows is greater than 0, then we can do permissions, right? So we want to add permissions. This is all the permissions actually the user will have. So we can just say permissions is equal to array column perms. The column key is permission. Yep, something like that, and then return permissions. Alrighty then. So at this point here, let's see if we actually get the results we want. If I now refresh, okay, so there's a problem. Too few arguments to function query. Okay, 0 passed. That is true. We're supposed to add a query. We can't just let this be. There we go. And now let's refresh. Okay, so array column argument 1 must be array boolean given. Okay, so the perms is, but wait, affected rows is greater than 0? What's happening here? Okay, so what I'm gonna do is echo the content of this. Oops. Alright, so let's echo the contents of that. Yeah, there's one result there. So what is going on? If there was a result, why? Okay, let's do a var dump here on the result. Okay, so why did it bring back false when there was an affected row? This is crazy. Okay, what I'm gonna do is try and echo the query here. Then I can copy that query. So let's refresh. So this is the query. Select permission from row permissions where row ID in, and then we have that other one here. Oh, the reason actually is there's no ID. We didn't provide that, so that's the reason why. So I guess this is unreliable. So affected rows lies. So what we'll do is we'll do this instead, like so. Okay, let's remove this as well. Okay, so let's see here. If I now refresh, okay, so I just don't get the permissions. That's great. Now the reason is that we have this variable here that we haven't supplied over here. So user ID, and then here we have to use the user ID, like so. In fact, we can omit this whole process here by just adding this directly to there, but it's fine. We can do it like this as well. So now we have those guys because we do have permission now, as you can see. Everything looks the same, but we have permissions now. That is great. So that's the function there, user permissions, and that's how it grabs our permissions to add to the existing permissions, whatever they are. Okay, that helps to give us permission, but now we have to deal with the Outlook itself, and let's create, let's see here, back to our command line 2. I'm gonna do PHP thunder and say make model. So you want a model that will load user rows. So make model user rows in that folder, and we're still gonna call it user rows. Yeah, let's try that. Okay, so the file is created. Right, so it's got user rows like that. Maybe I should have created it as one file, but let's check it out. Here it is, and it's got a namespace user rows correctly. User rows. Okay. Now, if you want to capitalize it instead, nah, I think I like this. This is fine. You can use camel case here if you want. You can change this to that, as long as you change the file name as well. So keep that in mind, user rows like that. You should indeed rename the file as well to match that capitalization. But I think this will cause problems because of how we set the thing to use camel case when looking for classes. So let's just leave it as it is like this. It was supposed to be user row as singular, but I added an S there because I forgot that models should be singular in nature. Okay, so there we go. So we have our user rows thing here, and it takes us to that table, which is great. So inside user rows, where's the migration file? So there's only two things there, row and disabled. That's all. So this is what we do when we go to our model, row and disabled. That's it. So same thing even here when updating. Boom. So same thing here. We're just going to change the word email to row, and it worked just fine. And same here. That row is already in use. Row is required. We don't need to filter. Now rows are better if you don't add any numbers and stuff. So here we're gonna say preg match. Then let's put a pattern here. Let's remove this part over here. Okay. If not preg much. So what we need for rows is just A to Z, capital A to Z. We don't want numbers in here. So let's put plus and $sign. We don't want spaces either. But if you want, you can add spaces. I think spaces are fine. Let me do that. Okay, so for as long as they're just letters and spaces, that's fine. Row can only have letters and spaces. Alrighty then, so that solves that problem. The rest we don't need. There's only just one item. So I'm going to copy this and validate update. I will wait, maybe not me. Okay, so I'm just going to replace this part here. Boom. Wait, what did I do? Row, data row. Okay, let me undo this. What's going on here? Okay, I just need to change the row here. And there as well. Okay. And let me copy this preg match here. And its message. Alright. Then instead of the email here, let's change that to row as well. Okay. 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 Alright, I think that solves that problem. Yep. Now we have a user's row lista here. User rows there. Good. So now if we come to our plugin, I don't know why it still loads from here. It's like it manages to grab the user's manager thing class somehow, but I don't know how. But it's happening. So let me copy this user rows here and exchange it. Inside the user rows plugin.php. Okay, so I'm looking for every instance of this where we used that. Okay, then change it. So I will do this. Oops. User row underscore row there, and then this part here, paste like that. Okay, good. Now I'm looking for wherever I've used user like this. Wait a minute. Okay, yep. So wherever I've used that, I'm going to do user underscore row like that. Okay. Let's see now if we get different results. Okay, so class user rows user row not found. Okay. Why is that? So back to user rows here, plugin.php. Where is it complaining from? 111, which is right here. Okay, so user row. Yeah, so I think I used user rows. Yeah, it is user rows, but namespace should be user row like that. Singular. Okay, so back again to the plugin. Wherever I've used this, I should use a single version. And then the file name, I forgot to rename it to remove that S. That's why it can't find it. Okay. Goody. Now let's refresh. So uncaught error, class not found, user role model. Why is it looking for model? Okay, what line is that? User role 10. Okay, let's go here. So it can't find model here. That's because they're in a different namespace. So we have to do something here. We have to say use model / model. And we need to put this inside the sample as well, so that, okay, good. So it says on line 4, unexpected token / where here. Oh, sorry, my bad. We have to do this instead. It should be like that. Okie doke. So it's working. So let me grab this and go to our samples and update to make sure that next time we don't have this problem. So that's model sample. I have to paste there like so. Okay. Cool. Let me remove. Okay, so there we are. Now we just need to have the correct items in here. So let me go to the list view here inside users rows, and here we just need two things: the row and whether it's active or not, and then permissions here, like that. So let's remove everything else except this action. So add new. Okay, so with that, now let's go to where we're looping. So here there's an ID, of course, and here there's a row. Now we're not going to be clicking to go anywhere on this row, so I'm going to remove this. And here we'll have disabled. But there we're calling it yes or no, right? So what we're going to do is this, put a question mark there, row disabled. If it's disabled, then active is no. But if it is not, active is yes. Like that. Okay. Let's remove this image. Gender is not required. This emptiness is not required. Date created, and that, until we get to this part here. Let's refresh. Okay, so there we go. We have a row for admin, active, yes, permissions, and then here. Now permissions should be empty here. So I was right to have, I should have an empty thingy here, like so. So let's remove the view. We don't need that. We just need edit and delete. So view here, out of my way. So instead of user, this is edit row. Those are the permissions, and delete row. Like that. Okay, I think that does it. So if I now refresh, this is what I have. But we need to list all possible permissions in here, and those permissions will come from the app variable. Now the thing is, if we go to, we don't want to be loading the, let's go to functions here. Now I have to make sure there is a function called app. Okay, it is there, which is right there. So it gets things from the app. So what I want to do is, wait, key is equal to empty, return app if there's no key. Okay, good. That is fine. So let me go back. Let me close these migration files. I don't need them. Even the thunderPHP. I need a list here. So in the list here where we have this part, what I can do is put some PHP tags, close them, and then I can do this to show the app function like that I want permissions, like so. Okay, let's see what we get. If I refresh, this is what I get. So these are all the permissions that are available to select for each user. There's all, there's view admin, blah blah blah. So we don't need, if some of them are repeated in other plugins, we can do array unique. So I can do array unique like that, I guess. Let's see if that works. Okay, so that gives us a unique value. In case there's always repeated somewhere, it just comes in once. So this is all good. Now we need to loop through them and list them instead of showing them like this.